Hey everyone, welcome to Name Your Game, the video game interview podcast by SharcTank Media. So in previous episodes, we've interviewed Dean and Doc from the Shy Kids podcast, so we figured we might as well go full circle, and we've got Cory Cooke from the Shy Kids podcast here today. Hi, Cory.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. The last of the Shy Kids.
Yes.
Well, we killed Doc when he was on, and then we killed Dean when he was on. So.
Yeah. We'll call it the Triple Crown.
There can be only one.
Okay, so just straight up, I want to give a disclaimer to all our audience. This podcast, while it is going to be about games, it's going to be about music too, because Cory isn't that much of a gamer, but he was in his past life. Not his past life, his young life.
And hopefully he will be in his next life.
Right, exactly.
In my second life.
I just want to give a heads up, straight up, if you're not a fan of music, if you're not someone who listens to a lot of different types of music or whatever, the latter half of this podcast probably isn't going to be for you. So I just want to let you know straight up so you weren't surprised down the end, but stick around because we are going to talk about games and game music and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
On the bright side, I personally feel like there is an appeal in talking to someone who's less of a gamer and kind of, picking their brain, getting things from their perspective.
The point is, we aren't prejudiced. We accept gamers and non-gamers alike.
Yeah, totally. Oh, and another disclaimer.
I appreciate it.
Sorry, Cory. Because I'm a big dummy, I actually didn't introduce ourselves personally. I'm Dane.
I'm Tim.
So just so you know, those are the voices that... Okay.
Yeah, now we're going to get our PAX Media registration rejected.
Denied. Yeah, they were about to hit approve, and then they go back and just listen to this episode, and they're like, oh, they didn't meet the qualifications. Got to introduce their names in the first 30 seconds.
That's right.
You can always edit that back.
Yeah, seriously. Like on your show on the Shy Kids, since Doc, your pal, edits that show, sometimes he'll edit right before going into the Nerdagories game. He'll edit from his own microphone, and I'm like, wait a minute, something's different here. Okay, so of the time in your past where you played video games, what was your favorite game of all time? What game gives you the best memories?
Leading up to this interview, I was doing a lot of sort of game soul searching to try to figure out what was my absolute favorite game, and
wow, you were that far disconnected from it that you had to.
Well, really... I haven't really sat and played a game since Wii Tennis.
Okay,
sure.
Was new. I had the Wii Sports, and then we got Beatles Rock Band for the Wii.
Nice, that's a good one.
And that was a fun game, but not something that I ever think I should go back and play that again. There's really only one game that if I had it, I probably would get sucked back into the rabbit hole that is that game.
Okay.
And it's from the Super Nintendo era, because that's really that was my sweet spot of gaming. Super Nintendo games in general were the time that console was the main console was the time where I spent the most time in front of a television screen, pushing buttons, because once the controllers got a little more complicated, I had a PlayStation, I had a PlayStation 2. I played some games on there, I tried to figure it out, and I really kept gravitating towards games that had less mechanics to them, less button pushing in general. Stuff that I didn't have to use those fucking joysticks. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I didn't have to use those joysticks to move anything,
Sure.
So my favorite game, one that I could probably play to this day to no end, is the original Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo system.
Okay.
Yeah, that's legit. Although, have you played the Nintendo 64 one? I guess you would have to use the joystick for that, wouldn't you?
Yes, yeah. The Nintendo 64 controller had a D-pad on the left prong that really didn't do much in any
Right,
game.
exactly. I can't think of a game where I actually used it. Maybe there was some use in GoldenEye, I remember. But anyway,
yeah, maybe.
Regardless, what you should do is you should download the 64 version of Mario Kart on your Wii on the Virtual Console. And then play it with a Wii controller, because it's more or less the same amount of buttons as the Super Nintendo version. It's just you wouldn't have to use a joystick.
Can you use the Wii controller now? Did they improve it?
Actually, you wouldn't.
You had to get.
You're right. I had a GameCube controller that I used.
Yeah. You can get the classic controller Pro. It's $20 and plugs into the bottom of the Wii remote where the nunchuck usually plugs in.
Right.
And you use that as close to a N64 controller as possible.
Right.
So it would still feel a little bit more like a newer game,
Sure,
less like the Super Nintendo Mario Kart. I wonder though if you would do well with the newer Mario Karts that allow you to use the Wii remote like a steering wheel.
You know what? We on our Wii as well. We got like some like I went to go get one of the driving games, like Wii Mario Kart or something like that, and it was all sold out. It was like sold out for months, and
Sure.
so we sort of resolved to just get this like NASCAR ripoff.
Oh no.
And it had like little cartoon Jeff Gordons and like
Sure.
you know like
Nice.
all these shitty little cars and whatnot. But the premise is basically the same. But you do steer that with the Wii remote, and we even got like little steering wheel things that you clip the remote into.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was all right with. Although I always feel like as I'm steering and I'm playing the game, my hands go up in front of my face, like I can't keep a center of gravity on on the steering wheel. So I'm driving all over the place, like knocking over shit.
Yeah, I know what
left
you
and
mean.
right.
If only there was like a mount that they made for it to make it feel more like a steering column.
It's funny because when I first played the Wii for the first time, I actually had two different friends who both waited the midnight release of the Wii, and the next day I went to their house and they were playing it. They wouldn't let me play because I was punching people with the Wii because I wasn't used to having a controller that you move. So when they said move the controller to the left, I would like move it 5 feet. You know what I mean? I'd be swinging it all over the place. They're like, you can't play anymore.
Well, that's better than I think I mentioned in the episode of the Shy Kids podcast where you graciously allowed us to guest with you guys.
You guys are great guests.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a blast. That's still one of the most fun evenings that I've had in a long time, and it was just
cool.
sitting in front of my computer talking to virtual people.
Right.
Some jerks.
But I mentioned that I worked for Nintendo not too long ago. We had this thing. I worked in the call center, so we took phone calls from customers, whether it was, they needed help, their console doesn't turn on, and can we troubleshoot that, or do we need to send it in for repair, that kind of thing. Any sort of problems they had, they'd call and talk to us about it. And we had this whole section called PPI. I honestly can't even remember what that stands for. Something like personal such and such injury, something or another.
Personal penis injury.
Yes, anytime they damage their penis playing any Nintendo system,
They mistook their dick for a Wii remote.
It happens.
They tried to use it to blow out the Super Nintendo cartridges.
Yeah.
Oh god. So anything from the batteries in a controller or handheld system melting and like the battery acid coming out and burning someone's hands, or
What the fuck are they doing with those controllers that the batteries are melting?
I think that can happen if they get a little wet. I think if water gets in there and touches the battery while it's operating.
Yeah, if it shorts it, it'll create a high current. It's funny because pretending your penis is a Nintendo cartridge, that's actually the leading cause of testicular inflation.
Wow, that sounded actually like legitimate.
I'm very good at sounding legitimate.
Right.
Sure, about things that are actually ridiculous. So, but a big thing is that remotes flying out of people's hands and breaking through their television.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but to get back to Mario Kart, I really do suggest that you try picking up Mario Kart Wii. If you can manage to keep the steering wheel in front of you, because that game is a ton of fun, and really, it's just two buttons other than, moving the controller. And I had a ton of fun in Mario Kart Wii. Nintendo 64 is probably, in my opinion, it's the best Mario Kart, or at least it's my favorite. That's why I suggested getting that in a virtual console, because it's good. See, I liked the original Mario Kart, but I don't think it aged very well. To me, it just looks... Well, it looks...
Yeah, because it's one of those things where they had to use sort of their limited technology, and they had to use tricks to give it an appearance of being more three-dimensional. The technology on the Super Nintendo was called Mode 7, that made those tracks that were very quote-unquote 3D, but they were so flat, just completely flat.
They look yucky.
Yeah, they don't look very good. And a friend of ours who works on the website with us, our friend Frank, his Super Nintendo, the Mode 7, whatever function the Mode 7 just stopped working. Everything else worked. So, like, if you tried to play Mario Kart, you would see the character sprites, but there'd just be nothing. They'd just be driving on nothing.
You go, wow. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it sort of limits your gameplay on that.
It's hard mode. Maybe it was intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All you see is the mini map, and you have to
But in terms of the newer Mario Karts where you steer with the actual remote,
Right.
I had always heard it said that like people who typically don't play video games, it's perfect for them. Because if you've ever noticed, and you may have even had this experience personally, but when you put a controller in someone's hands and they're playing a racing game, someone's hands who's not really familiar with gaming, they typically will tilt the entire controller left and right just while they're playing. And you see that a lot depicted when actors are using game controllers on TV. They just turn their entire arms left and right as though turning the controller is going to do anything. And so now that Nintendo with the Wii made it so turning the controller does do something, it almost seems like it works better for those people.
Yeah, I mean, like the very first game that I remember playing in general was a racing game. My dad's like way into NASCAR, and one of the first computer games that he got for like the family to use, like he got like Myst and Dune and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't allowed to play those games,
Yeah,
not even Myst.
Well, Myst, I would like sit next to him while he played Myst.
Myst creeped me out when I was a kid.
Yeah, Myst was pretty freaky. He also had another game called The 11th Hour, which was very similar. So going room to room and trying to figure out little puzzles.
I wonder if that's the sequel to The Seventh Guest.
It might be. I don't.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon.
But the first game I remember like playing on the computer before we got a console was a NASCAR racing game.
Okay.
And my dad bought a whole like dashboard rig with like pedals that you would put underneath the desk.
Dude.
So I had like
Awesome,
brake,
Dad.
gas, and clutch, and then like a gear shift. Like it was like a video arcade.
Sure. Like Cruising
in our
USA.
office. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Cruising USA. And you would like anchor it to the desk and whatnot. So like my first sort of venture into games was a racing game with a real wheel that I would actually steer the vehicle with, and pedals and whatnot. So
when I don't know, have you ever heard it or have you ever played any of the Gran Turismo games?
I got the first one with my PlayStation.
Sure, yeah.
PlayStation 2. One of those came with that.
I'm fairly certain the original Gran Turismo was original PlayStation.
It was, and then Gran Turismo 2 and 3 were PlayStation 2. And 4 and 5 are PlayStation 3. Okay. I played the crap out of Gran Turismo 2 and 3, and then I just kind of fell out of it until Gran Turismo 5 came out for the PS3. But when it did, I bought a steering wheel just like you described. You anchor it to the desk. It's got a gear shift. It's got pedals and everything.
Nice.
And not only that, but it had an electric motor built in, so it would fight you. Like you'd feel every little bump on the road. Like it would jerk the steering wheel.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was super intense, but it was a lot of fun. And I think that's why, for me, like, traditionally playing racing games is with a steering wheel. Because I also had my brother had a cheaper, it was a steering wheel, but it didn't have pedals, and it was kind of cheaper. But it was still a steering wheel that I used to play, like, Need for Speed 2 with and stuff back in the day. Speaking of Need for Speed, did you ever play any of the Need for Speed games?
No.
Man, those were
fun.
the...
I mean, on the opposite end of like, the racing simulation spectrum, those are arcadey and silly.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about racing away from the cops.
Just don't watch the Need for Speed movie with Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. It's not a good movie. Not a good movie. I watched it.
But yeah,
were you tainted by your game love? Like,
no, actually, I mean, I've never really had too much of I've never been too much of a Need for Speed person. I had fun with a few of them, but it's one of those series where they just came out with one every single year until they just beat it to death.
Right.
But it's just one of those video game movies that's there for the sake of drawing in the people who recognize the name.
Is it about as bad as the Super Mario Brothers adaptation?
No, not as bad. Not as bad.
What are you talking about? We have an article on our website telling you that movie is good.
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm
well,
not sure
the opinions of the guests are not that necessarily those expressed by SharcTank Media.
I personally don't like that movie, but that's okay.
No, I don't remember it enough to actually comment whether it's good or bad, but my memories of it it's just ridiculously cheesy.
Sure.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 times and been disappointed every time.
Oh gosh, you put yourself through that a few too many times.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think what I was getting to was traditionally my experience with racing games is with steering wheels. So that way, when I played the Wii game where the controller is the steering wheel, it just felt natural to me because that's how I play racing games.
Yeah, I mean, you were destroying me time after time with Mario Kart 8, doing it with the wheel, which was impressive because I had been playing a lot of Mario Kart 7 to prepare for 8. But yeah, I think I might even need to do steering wheel mode.
Dude, 150cc on the new Mario Kart's pretty tough.
Yeah. Okay, so Cory,
yeah, stay away from that flower cup.
Yeah, well, I think it's Star Cup that's the hardest until you move to Special Cup.
Yeah, fuck Special. I hate the new. Well, I don't hate it. At first, I hated the new Rainbow Road, but now I'm okay with it. I played some online matches, and I did a couple races on Rainbow Road online, and that kind of got me a little used to it. But yeah, I was destroying people online.
Oh man, we just had Pride here in Seattle. I should have played Rainbow Road to celebrate.
I think the online experience of games in general these days, like, had they had that when I was younger and actually playing video games, like being an only child, like I sit there and play video games by myself.
Sure.
A ton, and I was more gravitated towards the sports games, the racing games. That really it's more fun if you got somebody else in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to beat them.
I was looking forward to talking to you about Madden '94. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I'm a big Madden fan. Yeah, I had Madden all the way up until when was the last Madden I had? 2007.
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually the last one I played was 2007. Not coincidentally, it's also the last one on PC. That's why it's the last one that I.
No, yeah, I gravitated towards the sports games mainly because there's another engine to a lot of the sports games. Not just playing the games and whatnot, but like if you can create your own character and like if you can change his face, if you can adjust his agilities, if you can work towards something. Sure. That sort of career mode in most sports games was more appealing to me than the actual like playing the game or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so basically those were your RPGs were the
pretty much, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean like even that first racing game, that first NASCAR game, my favorite part about it was that you could take your car into the paint shop and you could hand draw your paint scheme on the car. And I would sit there and I did a Del Taco car and like like I would just pick because I was like I didn't know that I was a graphic designer at heart, like
right.
I was too young to know. I was drawing on MS Paint anyway, and the sort of structure of the paint shop in the racing game was exactly like MS Paint. So I would take logos and like make my own logos and do cool paint schemes and like
that's awesome.
Put like giant lightning bolts across the side and like, fuck it, this one's gonna be a police car, and I would paint it all. I would paint in the. I was basically like doing 3D mapping for like the siren to make it look like it when you looked at it from behind, it would look like the siren was popping up at you and stuff.
How old were you?
Man, I got into graphic design work with those programs when I was 15. So pretty much from like 10 to 15, I was drawing on paper and then doing the video game stuff, like MS Paint stuff for a while. Like I would challenge myself on MS Paint to do like 3-dimensional shading.
Nice.
And that's actually what prompted my grandfather, who owned a graphic design company, to have me come and mentor with him.
Wow.
Was in MS Paint, I was making these spheres and I was adjusting color hues for each individual circle that would digress in size and try to make it look as 3-dimensional as possible and like find a light source and like draw a shadow and like do all that kind of like just random only child shit. but really like I gravitated to those games because I could be creative in that way, and it makes sense to me now, but at the time, I didn't put any of that together, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, what I love about that is just thinking about that being accessible to you could have also just been a big part in you realizing you had that talent or going that direction. I mean, having the computer with those capabilities and even the games that had more creative modes,
no. It's definitely something that sort of set the groundwork for the career that I ended up taking.
Sure, that's awesome.
I kind of had the same experience, except my games were Math Blaster and Corky and Quazo's Turbo Science.
That's what pushed you towards being an engineer.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's funny because I remember in the game Armored Core 2, you could design your own emblem for your mech. And because I'm an engineer, the most complicated thing I could make was a Pokeball. So my fucking mech had a giant Pokeball.
So your robot was awesome, but he had a crappy logo.
Yeah, it was just a Pokeball.
Yeah, he could do 10 more things than anybody else's, but his logo was a little lacking.
We need more artists and engineers teaming up.
Right? Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, that's
right. I was going to say, Cory, so since you were younger when playing this game that allowed so much customization for your cars, you also mentioned how it would have been cool if there was an online play. However, you would have had plenty of other cars driving around with like Dick Butt on the side.
Yeah. I mean that's part of it, but I think had there been a sort of social aspect to games, this is sort of the point I was trying to get into, and then I went to drawing. But like,
Sure.
if there was a social aspect to the games back then, I think I probably would still be very heavily into gaming, because it would have sort of fulfilled that sort of need I needed as an only child to like interact with other people, on a common basis, whatever. And I mean, around that same window where I started to sort of phase out of being a super regular, like wake up every weekend and like get home from school and just go straight to a video game. I started a band. My best friend was like, "Hey, we should form a band." That was when I was 11, and we started getting good when I was about 13. And then by 15, I was drawing things for the band and like more interested in that than the video games per se, even though there was still those keys. Like I had to buy the Madden when it came out because I needed to be able to tackle better, I needed to know if the engine was any tougher, and if the the AI had gotten any better, if I could still beat them by 75-0.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, if only you were still heavily into video games today. I mean, it'd only come at the cost of your wife and child. No big deal.
Yeah, that is a point of contention when we were first when we were dating, like sort of the mid range when we were dating.
So you liked Madden more than her, and she got upset.
Yeah, I mean that's probably why. Like 2007 is the last Madden game I bought. By 2000, by the end of 2009, we were engaged.
There you go.
Nice.
So,
Oh, I was going to ask you, did you have the game Baseball? It was for the original NES. It was just called Baseball. And it was a baseball game, and it was the best. Me, my dad, and my brother would play that so much. It was
for the original
so
Nintendo.
Yeah,
I didn't have an original Nintendo. I went from
so you started with Super Nintendo.
I went from Game Boy.
Interesting.
Oh, Game Boy.
I went from Game Boy to Super Nintendo, and then got a Sega. What were those handheld Sega?
The
Game Gear.
Yeah.
Game Gear. Yeah, I had 2 games on the Game Gear. I had the Lion King.
Game Gear with its 14 AA batteries.
Yes. That would always go out right as you were at a boss stage. Like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, Lion King and...
Yeah, Lion King.
Aladdin?
And then there was a game, I want to say it was called Bonk or something like that.
Oh,
it had
Bonk.
like... It had a little character with
Bonk.
with a giant head. And he was like a little caveman guy.
Yeah, no, I like Bonk. He's cool. He, I think he was made by the company that does Bomberman, because they were Bomberman games where you could play as Bonk as a side character. That's sad though that you had a Game Gear, no Sonic.
Yeah.
It didn't come. It came with Bonk, not Sonic. I don't know.
Yeah. I grew up with Sonic. I just even though, and I don't know I don't know how much you hear from people who are gamers, but Sonic at this point in his career is just not doing good whatsoever.
I'm surprised he still is appearing in video games.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things where it was such a well-known character and such a popular franchise that like
Mario.
It's the Mario alternative. Yeah.
Very alternative at this point.
It was back in the day, and now Sonic is drowning in obscurity.
Yeah, just because they tried to change it up too much, and it's not very good now, and it's sad. But my memories of Sonic, because I was a Sega kid. You had a Super Nintendo. I had a Sega Genesis at the same time, and I loved Sonic, and just.
Yeah, and as a, I know you're a big fan of Disney. It's a shame that you never played the Aladdin game, because I remember the Aladdin licensed game for Sega was really good. Yeah,
at a time, and I mean, I guess to this day, licensed games tend to be pretty bad.
Right.
But especially back then, a lot of them were terrible. But the Disney ones typically maintained quality somehow.
Yeah, I did have I had a few Disney games on the Game Boy, I think.
Okay.
They weren't very good.
Sure. Yeah, some of them just didn't get published by good or developed by good companies, but a lot of them were developed by Capcom and were amazing.
I was more interested in playing the Chase HQ on my on my Game Boy.
Nice.
Another driving game. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
And then and beating Super Mario Brothers Game Boy Edition over and over and over.
Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. Do you remember which one you had?
I probably had Super Mario Land.
The first one?
The end stage, you're in a plane.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Super Mario Land.
Yeah.
I had it like everything memorized. Like that was probably the first game I obsessed about too.
Nice.
Was Super Mario Land, because I didn't have any other game console, and for the longest time I only had like Tetris, Super Mario Land, and Chase HQ as games for my Game Boy. And I played the shit out of Super Mario Land. I took that everywhere I went, and I had every level memorized timing wise. Like,
nice.
You probably could have recorded. You know, people do those like those videos where they're just gonna beat the level in like 38 seconds.
Right,
you know?
speed runs.
Yeah. I could have done that with most every level on that game back then.
Sure.
I recently sold. Well, it was probably a few years ago. I sold my Game Boy system, and all of the games and whatnot. Sort of let it go.
Yeah.
Around the time that I got engaged. Funny enough.
No relation.
Yeah. No connection. We had a giant garage sale, and she sold all of my shit. No. No. I hooked it up to play it to make sure that it still worked and that like the game still did everything you know that it was supposed to. Because I was worried that the screen had deteriorated so much that I would just have to throw it away.
Sure.
And I tried playing the game, and like the first level came back to me, and then I just nothing but die. I had lost the touch.
The muscle memory wasn't still there.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your Game Boy, you were worried that it had deteriorated. Sounds like it didn't, which I'm not surprised by, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but in New York City, there's a giant Nintendo store. It's called Nintendo World, and it's a 2-story. It's in the Rockefeller Center, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, cool.
And on the top floor, at least at the time, I think they've rearranged it, but when I went, on the top floor, they had a section that was like a little like Nintendo museum. Just lots of really old, cool stuff. Some things were in glass cases, some things are up on the wall. There's little descriptions of things, and one of the things that they have in the glass case is a Game Boy that was, it like survived a bombing in Iraq or something like that. Basically,
Really?
A soldier had it with him, and so it's sitting in there. The casing just looks absolutely messed up. It's all like, when I saw it from a distance, I thought, whoa, is that like a limited edition Game Boy that had like a, because it looked almost like it was made out of like, it was supposed to look like a rock. Like the screen and buttons looked like they were, like the Game Boy was carved out of a rock, and there's a screen and buttons in there that you could play it. But then I got closer, and it was just fucked up plastic, basically. And all they had to do is basically put a new screen in, and then it still works. Wow. So it's just sitting there demoing Tetris all day, and it's like, yeah, from 20 years ago, this thing was blown up, and here it is.
They didn't replace any of the circuit boards or anything?
I'm fairly certain it says we just had to swap the screen. I could be wrong on that. It's possible there was more that they needed to do, but to the point where it's still impressive, and it's not just like, oh, well, this is the same shell, but everything else is different, because then that wouldn't be as cool. I'm almost sure it was something where it was like, wow, that's all they had to do? These things are durable. Yeah,
like I remember it would glitch out, and occasionally you would get that blank screen with the one line. You get
remember that.
Like bars across your screen.
Yeah,
and then you had to like reset. It would happen every time you put the power button in the middle of on and off. It would do these weird bars and whatnot.
Yeah, that's like the equivalent of like how the NES, had its own sort of glitchiness on the TV.
Yeah, and you had to blow out the cartridges and
you'd be playing, and then it would just go.
And the struggle back in the day.
It is a shame that you didn't have an NES, because back in the day, before like the Marios and the Mega Men, and they all like took off and started becoming franchises and kind of expanded what games were, there were a lot of games that were just called baseball or soccer or volleyball or tennis, and they were just a video game of the sport. It's like the upgrade version from Pong, where it's like tennis. But it actually shows little tennis guys. And growing up, I played a lot of sports as a kid. So, my whole family's into sports. So me and my dad and my brothers, we would play the crap out of soccer and baseball and everything. And those games were just so much fun, even though, like, compared to like the modern games, they weren't realistic at all. You know what I mean? They were, the rules were the same, but it was still very video gamey. And I think that was what was fun.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I had, like before I even had a Game Boy, I had... It looked like a Game Boy, but it was only a football game, and it had like just a screen that was like printed on it, a little printed football field. I want to remember that it was like the original Tecmo Bowl, but I don't think it was Tecmo.
Well, I know Tecmo did make a handheld game that was just football.
Well, perhaps it was. I don't want to like say, oh yeah, it was a Tecmo handheld game, and that doesn't exist.
Sure.
Because it's been so long since I've even seen the thing,
Yeah.
But it was basically just a series of lights underneath this dark screen that had a football field painted on it, and you had a little D-pad and one button to throw if you were throwing, and the little lights would light up, and your guys and their guys were the same color. and then your little character, wherever the ball was just a slightly orange or yellow than the rest of the lights.
So when you went out and played football with your friends, did you feel that you had an unfair advantage because you were practicing?
I was strategizing with a handheld game. Yeah,
there you
go. But yeah, that was probably like my very first video game.
Nice. Yeah, sure. I had the Tiger Electronics handhelds, which were I think everybody who grew up in our generation is familiar with these. It's like
yeah. Holy shit, yes. I had a Street Fighter version of that. Yeah,
nice. I think I had a Sonic one, and I think I had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one.
Yeah, who knows? I know I had a bunch, but I think I had a Ninja Gaiden. I don't remember anything else. So
God, those things were so.
I forgot all about the Tiger games.
Bad, to be honest.
They were like
terrible.
Game & Watch knockoffs, basically.
Yeah, just with way less going on. It was just like, you're moving in this direction, and occasionally a shape will pop up, and you have to either shoot it or move away from it.
They only had enough space on the screen to make like 6 sprites.
Yeah. Oh, God.
You could only... It was so jagged. Doop, 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 doop. Yeah, it was...
yeah, good. I'm glad you guys are familiar with those too.
Oh yeah,
I forgot all about the Tiger ones. Yeah, that would have been the bridge from that Tecmo Bowl game to the Game Boy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You guys mentioned the Madden games a few times, and Cory, are you familiar with the Wii U console, the successor to the Wii?
No, I don't know how I convinced my wife to get the Wii. Maybe because there was like. Oh, like it's like we're moving and it's exercise and like we could do it together and the games aren't that hard. But yeah, like we bought a house, and when we went from our apartment to our house, there was like an interim, a couple months where we were waiting for escrow and whatnot, where we weren't in the apartment and we weren't in the house.
Sure.
And everything got packed away, and the Wii went to the wayside, and we just stopped like that. It was like almost a resurgence of video games in my life again. And then we moved into a house, and then the console never came back out.
Gotcha.
And it only recently has popped back up on our dresser in our room, but I think that's
it's got the Netflix on it.
Well, that was part of it too. Like, we get an Apple TV for one TV, and we'll get the Wii. It'll play Netflix. Like we can do all that stuff. But it sort of got brought out now because my son, we're sort of going to prime him towards those sort of consoles. But I would assume that it would be completely obsolete by the time he's got the sort of cognitive power to figure out what's going on in the game and be good, that we probably should upgrade to the Wii U.
Yeah, I was going to say with the Wii U, the controller, the main controller, is essentially a tablet. You've got a touchscreen. It's like a 6-inch touchscreen in the center of the controller, and then your regular controller buttons on the left and right side of that touchscreen.
That's already too complex for me.
Yeah. The reason I brought that up is because, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but I think a really awesome idea would be if a Madden came out for the system. They've been saying that they're going to make it so you can use 2 of those fancy touchscreen controllers, so basically one player has one and the other player has one, and they've got their own private screens. I think a Madden needs to come out where you can set up your own team's strategies on your own screen.
Oh, yeah.
So the other player can't figure out what you're doing.
Right, yeah, for picking plays.
They can't see where your cursor's going.
Oh yeah, dude. I whenever I was on defense, I would always watch the offensive guy pick his plays before choosing my defense.
It's not like that gives you an advantage or anything.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Except, have you seen the Madden games for the Wii?
No, I haven't.
They're cartoony as all hell.
Yes.
They're
actually,
gross.
I lied. I am familiar with those. I don't know. Yeah, the EA Sports did go that direction. They also had the college versions that were on the Wii, basically focused more on the mascots of the teams. So you had big, stupid mascot heads running down the field.
Funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everybody.
That was the moment when I realized that perhaps I bought the wrong console when I went with the Wii.
Sure.
Because I thought, like, cool, I got video games back. That means that I could get... I'm sure they'd make a Madden for the Wii. Haha, this will be great. And then I saw it. I looked at the package and went, nope. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The Wii is a console for kids, really.
Families.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much like a non-gamer console. I mean, of course it has. It's a Nintendo console, so it had its Zeldas and Marios and things that we did want to play. But so much of it was a lot of third-party titles, for families. And I mean, if the Wii wasn't what it was, Nintendo would probably be in a lot worse shape right now because they have their $7 billion or whatever that they...
Yeah, because the Wii being made for families made it absurdly successful.
Yeah.
They found the hole in the market there.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. And they got to use the previous generation's technology, so they didn't, other than the remotes and the motion sensing and all that stuff, they got to just use the same hardware. And yeah, that was really smart on their part.
Well, I think the greatest thing about the Wii in particular has to do with the fact that you can back catalog almost every game that Nintendo has put out for any other platform.
Yeah,
that
or a lot of
had.
them, for sure.
Yeah. That most of my time spent on the Wii is playing my my Wii version of Street Fighter 2,
Nice.
Or my wife will
My
pick
wife?
up my wife, yeah.
My wife. Sorry,
Doc wasn't here. I didn't think that was going to happen.
No, I'm sorry. It's like a virus, man. I listen to your podcast.
There's no escape.
I know.
My hetero life mate will pick up the controller, and we got the Super Mario World 3 on the Wii as well. So like,
Nice.
she has a bit of her sort of video game pass, and I get a little bit of my video game pass. But most of mine sort of centers around either sports games or like what was available in an actual arcade.
Sure.
That was the hardest part about playing. Like I spent half a day finding a site that would give me the old Ryu special moves for Street Fighter, and then I had to figure out how they modded it to the Wii controller.
Sure.
It wasn't quite the same.
Yeah. It was like 1-2-1-2 plus.
Oh well, no. The thing is, that you've got your light, medium, and heavy punch, and your light, medium, and heavy kick, and with just the Wii remote, you
just
don't
have
have
punch
enough
and kick.
buttons on there to do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, you've got your D-pad there, so you can still do your quarter circle motion where you do the crouch to forward. But yeah, the buttons. It's not the most ideal way to play Street Fighter.
Yeah. Like I figured it out and then promptly forgot it all. I would get destroyed if I tried to play it again. But,
Sure.
Unless I spend another half a day, like, all right, okay. It's fun. I think I even like printed out the special moves list and put it in the in one of the sleeves of one of the games. Like,
there you go.
I won't
funny.
forget this.
Oh my gosh, I haven't done that in such a long time. That's such an old school game thing, because now we just pull up the lists on our phones or like have a laptop next to us or whatever. But yeah, printing things out, like printing out cheat codes and then folding it up and putting it in the game case.
It's exactly what I did, yeah.
I never liked the games that required you to memorize a lot of special moves and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
yeah?
I was never really into fighting games when I was younger.
I love fighting games. I think fighting games are some of my favorite, but that's just because I've got a weird thing. Like, I like competition because I feel like I need a game where the focus of the game is playing against other people, because I have the opportunity to try and be good at something, essentially.
Sure.
Right.
But anyway, we mentioned
enough about
earlier
your
in the
therapy.
show- That's not what I meant. But
No, I feel the same way. I mean, I think that's why I gravitated towards sports games, because it made me feel like oh, I could accomplish something. I could be better than somebody else. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So earlier in the episode, Tim had mentioned that we were going to be talking about music during a portion of this. So to gravitate in that direction,
we milked the whole gaming thing a little more than I thought we'd be able to. So
well, technically, we still
did I do
could.
all right?
I just wanted to be relevant.
yeah, you did decently. No, I'm just kidding. You did good.
You did great. No,
I
honestly,
have more of an old school gamer perspective, but yeah.
Exactly. I've been having a blast talking about it. But yeah, I'm really curious though, because as someone who has played games, and I mean, I guess technically the games you're familiar with were kind of before much in the way of advancements in terms of what the audio capabilities. But as someone who's also musically minded, have you ever had a game where there was a song in the background or something like that actually stood out to you that you thought was, I don't know, interesting or I don't know, even catchy? Like, is there an aspect of video game music composition that has ever stood out to you in any way?
One of the sort of earliest games on the Game Boy, Tetris, actually had its own playlist, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, I love
Yeah, and all the songs are good.
Yeah, you could shuffle through each, like, what was there, like eight different tracks?
I don't know if there were 8. I recall
I think it was 6.
6, really?
6, yeah.
I really only remember, I guess, the two big ones.
Well, I can't think of 3 off the top of my head, but I feel like there's more that I've forgotten.
Sure. Similarly, Dr. Mario also had a couple really good tracks,
Could
and it
be
had
wrong.
the same thing.
Maybe it was
the
just-
playlist.
Yes, Dr. Mario, wow, yeah.
You've played Dr. Mario?
I had Dr. Mario on the Game Boy, and then I would
Nice.
play it on my SNES Game Boy adapter
Super Game Boy.
cartridge.
Super Game Boy.
Yeah.
Super Game Boy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. yeah. And pick weird color schemes. See, that was another thing. Like I could pick color schemes for my games.
Well, yeah, because the games were originally meant to be in black and white, so it had to create like just a janky color palette for it.
And like the Game Boy Color did on the old Game Boy games.
Yes, exactly. Except on the Super Game Boy, didn't it also have borders? You could choose the border around the screen because it couldn't blow it up to fill up the whole screen.
Sure.
Wasn't there a border around it?
I don't know. I never played the Super Game Boy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it depended on the format of your TV.
Maybe. I could have
Yeah,
sworn.
I'm sure it did, because if you had a perfectly square TV, you would be able to fit it fully.
I guess so.
But if you were working like a rear projection TV, like one that you would have at like a pizza joint,
Sure.
those would have extra space. Yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
but
the music
in Tetris was like, I thought that was really cool. You could sort of shuffle a playlist, depending on your mood, however you wanted to play.
Sure.
The game.
Well, I was going to say, because a game like Tetris, you could potentially be sitting there playing for an endless amount of time. Being able to change up the music and having good, catchy, interesting music, I could imagine how much that helps.
Yeah, you know what? And like the music would get more intense.
Sure.
It would get faster. That was a huge, like I would eventually have to just turn the music down as I got to like higher levels because it would make me so anxious and my hands would start sweating.
Sure.
And my breath would shorten and like, I can't take it.
You might drop your line piece into the wrong spot and fuck
I
everything
know.
up.
Oh man, I needed a do.
Yeah.
But like original Mario music too, like doo 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 doo. Like that. That's so iconic.
Absolutely.
But for my sort of main chunk of video game play, the actual music to the video games wasn't really a key feature.
Sure.
Like I said, being an only child, like because I had the Super Nintendo, I'd always be like, just come over to my house and we'll play video games and we'll do whatever you want to do.
Sure.
kind of a thing.
Be my siblings. Be my pretend siblings.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Fill the void, please.
We've got popsicles and Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. Exactly. But my best friend who I started my first band with, he was way into music and sort of probably the reason why I got way into music as well was because of him and his influence. And
sure,
he would bring over CDs and put them in my stereo, and then we would play whatever SNES game that we picked for the day. And like every game sort of had its own album that we would play to, like the Addams Family Values game, which is a terrible game, but we would play that for hours, and we would just we would put on REM's Document.
Awesome.
And that was the soundtrack. I was never
into REM. I just...
You know what? Neither was I, but that album, because it has like What's the Frequency, Kenneth on it, and like it's got it's like a quintessential REM album.
Sure. Did it have Losing My Religion?
I want to say yes, but probably not. I think it's the album before that.
Okay.
Those replaced we would just put the TV on mute and then just play the rock bands of the time. I mean, like Mario Kart oftentimes was the soundtrack was Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill.
Oh, interesting. I did not expect that at all.
No,
I was like, Mario Kart, something to race to. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I expected something more upbeat.
Yeah, it varied, and then like through the years, it would become like No Effects and Bad Religion.
Offspring would be good for Mario Kart.
Offspring Smash was
getting in the mind of early '90s mindset. Offspring would have been perfect.
Offspring Smash was the first album that I received, the first CD that I got.
Nice.
I think the first CD that I got was Weird Al.
Weird Al was soon to follow for me. Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't Poodle Hat. It was anyway. Go ahead.
I don't remember my first CD, but I know that my first cassette tape was Tub Thumpin' Chumbawamba.
Man!
And I got it for Christmas with my own Walkman. Sorry for anybody listening that just thinks we sound like grandpas or whatever. My first vinyl. No.
8-track.
I was sitting there in my room, and it was like 7 a.m. because we opened the presents nice and early, and I ran in there and I put on the headphones and popped in the tape, and I was listening to the Tub Thumper or whatever, and I remember singing really loud. I get knocked down. I get knocked down. And I was
get up again.
Exactly.
Never going to keep you down.
It's funny because I remember when we went to karaoke one time and we were singing this song, and I had no idea it had any meaning to you. I just remember you and I got really into it, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Dane's playing along," because I think I picked the song.
Which song?
Tub Thumping.
We sang that at karaoke?
Yeah, it was when we went to Rockbox that one time. I remember it. I just remember that you and I each had a microphone, and we were getting really into it. And I was like, "Yeah, Dan's getting into it. That's fun." I didn't know that it like had
any sort of meaning to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Any sort of embarrassing meaning to me.
Yeah.
I don't actually. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Now I feel bad. I actually do not remember that experience.
No, it's fine. You might have been drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think the first album that I don't know, good music, I guess. I mean, I love Weird Al. He's I'm a huge fan of his, but he's obviously not serious.
Still parody.
Yeah, exactly. He's more of a serious musician these years.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to justify your love for Weird Al. Weird Al is fantastic.
Good. He has a new album coming out in like 2 weeks. I'm super excited.
Does he really?
Yeah, it's called Mandatory Fun. I can't wait. But anyway, the first I borrowed from one of my best friend's older brothers. I borrowed it was Alice in Chains Unplugged. And
they're unplugged.
Yeah, that is like, oh my god, that Alice in Chains was my grunge band. So it's weird growing up in Seattle thinking Nirvana was overrated, because I thought Alice in Chains was the quintessential grunge band. Like, yeah, Pearl Jam's good, Nirvana, they're fine, whatever, but I was really into Alice in Chains, and I think it's because I had such an early exposure to them, and well, I still think they're amazing. But yeah, their Unplugged album is just fantastic.
You didn't mention Soundgarden.
Well, Soundgarden, No, I actually loved Soundgarden. You're right. They didn't pop into my head.
Sure.
Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains.
Sorry, I had to look up the album that I had. I had the album with the three-legged dog on it.
Was that called
self-titled? I don't know.
No, I thought it
Tripod.
was called like Tripod. There you go.
Tripod. Yeah.
Three-legged dog. That's apt.
Is it? It had the creepy dude with like a ukulele or a mandolin on the back that also had 3 legs. Like,
was Alice in Chains the band where the lead singer passed away and then they eventually got a new lead singer and started making music again?
Yeah, they picked up this black guy. I can't remember his name.
Didn't he still sound a lot like the old guy?
Nah,
really?
not particular.
Could have sworn I heard 2 tracks and was like, wow, that sounds very similar.
I don't know. I don't like their new stuff as much. The thing about Alice in Chains, and one thing that I really loved was all the harmonies they did in vocals, because the lead guitarist Jerry Cantrell did a lot of vocals too.
Okay.
So he sings a lot in the new stuff. So you might have heard a song that was Jerry singing, and you're like, oh, that sounds, because it was the same guy.
Still
you know
the same
what I mean?
guy. So he was like a backup singer.
Yeah, exactly. Or he leads song on several songs too.
Okay. I guess speaking of bands that have 2 different singers for different tracks, when I grew up, my older brother was obsessed with Oasis.
Yeah.
And so I actually remembered stealing his Oasis CD. It was Morning Glory. What's the Story, Morning Glory? And bringing it over to my friend's house. Because my friends, I grew up in New York City, and my friends were really into rap. We were just white kids that thought we loved rap. I mean, I think I knew that I didn't really like it, but maybe they did really like it. I don't know.
Still love rap.
I'm not a hip hop person to an extent. I think there are, like every genre, there are good parts and bad parts. But
sure, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, that's sort of like me growing up in Southern California and not really being that into reggae.
Oh, okay.
Sure. I can listen to Sublime, all right, but
they have a couple good tracks.
I need a little more variety,
Sure.
Yeah, Sublime is one of those bands that probably similar to Nirvana, where like I liked them, but they were played so much.
Yeah,
I was just like, come on, man.
Well, they're a little more like a punky reggae too. They're not like traditional reggae, right?
They were considered
like ska,
skunk,
right? Yeah.
Oh,
skunk.
there you go, ska. Yeah,
skunk.
They've got a
skunk. So it's like
skunk,
ska punk,
ska punk, yeah.
But Oasis, I brought the CD over and was like, yeah, my brother listens to this, so we should listen to it and see what it's like, and popped it in, and we all listened to it, and my friends who were really into rap were all like making fun of it, and I was sitting there thinking, I kind of like this, but I pretended to make fun of it too.
Sure, yeah.
Oasis ended up becoming one of my favorite bands of all time, and I really like Noel's solo stuff a lot too, thanks to you and Brandon.
Yeah.
What's the name of his solo stuff? It's got a weird name about birds.
High flying birds.
High flying birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot. But yeah, I mean that's just one of my memories. One of the first bands I remember getting really into.
And then Liam made his own thing as well called BDI, and it's funny because it's like BDI. But whenever I say it, people think it's the initials BDI.
That's exactly what. Well, because that's how you said it.
Well,
you said
BDI. BDI. That's what it's called.
I guess.
BDI. Like. Whatever. Anyway, the point is...
He needed to pluralize that.
Yeah, or something. Like
BDIs.
Yeah, just make something that doesn't sound like an acronym.
Sure. That's funny.
So, Corey, obviously your band has more of a... I don't know, what genre would you describe your band as being?
We're like hard rock. Like I used to describe it as straightforward rock, but it's not really that straightforward. It's hard rock for musicians by musicians a little bit. Like if you, that sounds pretentious as all hell. It's really not.
It
that
really
pretentious.
does.
In that it's not really like mainstream or catchy or whatever. Like we play, or when we write songs, we write stuff to more challenge ourselves.
Sure.
Like, I want to be able to play this kind of a bass line and sing over it. Like, let's see if we can do that, and we structure songs sort of around that. Or like,
That's pretty cool.
You know, it's not so much. It's more about like progression and of our self-expression more so than it is about
being
like
a rock star.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little more geeky than most musicians out there trying to make it. Whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, I would consider us a sort of hard rock with a sort of touch of progressive, I guess.
Are there any bands that you can compare yourself to that would help kind of?
That is the hardest question.
Well, how about this? Who are your influences? Who are your biggest influences?
That varies through the band as well. Like me personally, my biggest influences are Foo Fighters, mainly Dave Grohl. Man's an animal with growl singing, and writes some pretty catchy rock songs as well.
Yeah,
I love the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, I do too.
And Rush is a huge influence on me.
I expected you to say Rush because I've heard you talk about him before, and I love Rush. Like I've seen him in live like 3 times, and
I like Rush too. I haven't seen him live, and I'm not super familiar with their discography, but I like him a lot.
Their discography is fucking giant.
It is, yeah. It's pretty massive. Yeah, I have two tattoos. One of them is a skeleton playing the bass, which sort of represents like my.
You'll do it till you die.
My musical soul, yeah. And the other one is the star from 2112.
There you go.
Yeah, Rush is a big part of my sort of musical maturity in general. It's something that like my dad and I shared as well. It was like one band that was like, fuck, they're epic, And we've seen Rush four or 5 times live, nice. And we went to this special screening of their documentary, and like
nice.
We got our tattoos at the same time. He has the same star, but he actually has the star man.
Father-son tattoo. That's awesome.
How recently have you seen them? When was the last time you saw them?
Their last tour.
So it's fairly recent.
I saw Snakes and Arrows, and then I didn't go to
Snakes and Arrows.
I didn't go to. No, I did. We went to the one where they were doing like a bunch of throwback songs.
Okay,
Was it Rush 30? That's what it was. Rush 30, go. And then their most recent. God damn, what was the name? It's like Clocks or Time. Like it was all steampunk. I don't know. It was fantastic though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I saw them in the Snakes and Arrows tour. That's the last time I saw them, and I was just wondering if you had the same experience. But Geddy's voice is it's kind of losing some steam there, or at least it was when I saw him.
I didn't really feel that until this last tour. That's where I was like, you know what? It kind of sounds like he's got a cold.
Sure.
There's a Rush 30 documentary where it was the first time I'd heard it, and I thought maybe he's having an off night. And then when we saw him live in concert for the following tour, it was sort of apparent that no, he's just old. I mean, they're old guys. They started in
it's
74, 72,
it might have been 74, early 70s.
They a working man, it might have been right around that time. That was the first song to be played.
You mentioned that they did a steampunk thing, and that just reminds me that in general, Rush is considered a little bit more of like, they've got a little bit more of like a geeky influence, don't they?
Oh yeah, for sure.
They are the quintessential music by musicians for musicians band.
Oh yeah.
There isn't many people who play in rock bands that don't say that Neil Peart is the best fucking rock drummer to ever drum.
I don't even mean geeky in the sense like a musical geek. I mean like they kind of cross over to like fantasy and sci-fi and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they totally do. Yeah.
They have a lot of cyberpunk influences, like back before cyberpunk was a thing.
Sure, like I wouldn't be surprised if people back in the 70s and 80s played D&D with Rush on in the background.
Sure. Like 2112 is a cyberpunk album essentially.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's funny because there's this episode of Futurama, and it's like the quote unquote video game episode where like they're getting attacked by space invaders, and it looks just like the Space Invaders from the game Space Invaders,
Sure.
and Fry's like, it's my moment to shine, and then it was like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he like, he put on Rush to play Space Invaders along.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like even my favorite song by them, Red Barchetta, is about a futuristic society where cars have been outlawed.
Yeah, exactly.
The main character of the song has an uncle who has a barn way out in the middle of nowhere, and he's got this Red Barchetta car that he takes on the open road, and like the second half of the song is like this crazy instrumental where the police in their flying machines are chasing him down the highway.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, it's totally
That is
geek.
cool.
Yeah,
culture friendly.
Red Barchetta is one of my favorite songs. So.
And I guess similar to, comparing this to, or I guess to saying that it's geeky, there's a band that I really like, a more recent band called the Proto Men, and they're named after a character called Proto Man, and he's a character from the video game series Mega Man. And your description of that song made me think of some of their tracks, which are also kind of painting a picture of like a cyberpunk society, and you can, hear the character kind of explaining how he's being chased down by this dystopian, like government and
Yeah.
So
Rush is a little more poetic.
Sure.
But
yeah, I know. I mean, they kind of go more for like a Queen rock opera kind of thing.
Yeah.
Queen was a huge band for me growing up too.
Oh yeah,
I
love
Queen.
Queen.
The Futurama reference was a 2-liter bottle of Shasta in my All Rush mixtape.
There you go. That was it.
Yeah,
that was Brandon, by the way, our producer.
Yeah, he's back.
Queen was sort of my way of sort of identifying with classic rock without saying that I liked the Beatles, the Stones, or Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
Like those were like, oh, Zeppelin is fucking everything, or like the Beatles are the best band ever, And then there's the Stones fans who are like, fuck the Beatles, the Stones are way better, And I was like, no, fuck you all, Queen. Queen is so epic.
I was like that with the Who.
Yeah, I was a big Who fan too. Yeah.
Yeah, Who's good. No, I think
that scream. Oh man.
Yeah.
I want to be able to scream like that so bad.
Don't give up. You can do it someday.
I can't.
Keep trying.
I tried it.
No, you'll probably like if you try and practice it, you'll scar your child forever.
You'll
Why is Daddy always screaming in the corner?
Oh man. Yeah.
No, in regard to Queen and the Beatles, I honestly, I'm the least of this in this conversation. I'm the least musical person, I guess, which is weird because I actually really connect with music and I'd love to make my own music, but culturally, I'm very, I guess, ignorant. I was never really put in any situation where I was to be listening to a lot of different music, and so it just never... I barely know album names. I'm not familiar with a lot of bands that are pretty popular, and I've tried over the years to really kind of catch up on all of that. But so for me, though, the two musical deaths that make me really sad are Freddie Mercury and John Lennon.
Yeah. Freddie Mercury's death. Yeah, that was a real emotional one for me as well. Yeah, I remember seeing the memorial concert that they did, and being angry at Axl Rose, for singing
and for everything,
and like that too. But like, I remember that happening.
For existing.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I like Guns N' Roses, but Axl Rose is a douche.
They have good songs. Yeah.
But that tribute concert, and then Axl Rose came on, and I was just like, no, this is all wrong. Like
you're down here. He's up here.
No, stop trying to be Freddie. Everybody just stop.
Anybody trying to be Freddie is going to fall short.
The closest thing I saw was that kind of newer guy who did a YouTube
Lady Gaga?
video. No.
That newer guy, Lady Gaga?
God damn it.
Yeah.
No, there's the guy, he looks like Freddie, and he sounds the most like Freddie, I think, than anybody that has tried to be Freddie.
There was a guy whose name I don't recall, but he was on American Idol, and he did
Adam Lambert.
Adam Lambert, there you go. He does a damn good Freddie Mercury. But that dude's a freak.
He's isn't he singing for Queen?
No.
Is he touring with Queen?
No, the guy that I was talking about is touring with Queen.
Oh, okay.
And I forget his name, but he's really good. Usually,
we might be talking about the same person, to be honest.
But he's not Adam Lambert. I don't think he was on American Idol.
Okay, well,
but
I don't know.
Anyway, how about Iron Maiden, Corey? Do you like Iron Maiden?
You know what? I sort of missed the metal boat a bit.
Okay.
I went sort of.
Oh man, that was a.
I went grunge, punk, post-punk, and then into like back towards the more progressive harder rock.
You
Like
mean you
the
never had an
Tool
emo
and
phase?
System of a Down. Not really.
Panic at the Disco?
Um,
I'm just kidding.
my wife listens to Panic at the Disco, but that's not really
okay.
emo. That's like this
Shitty. That's just what it is.
I don't mean
Yes.
to offend anybody. If you like Panic at the Disco, that's
Well,
totally cool.
If you like Panic at the Disco, like legitimately like Panic at the Disco, with the exception of my wife, who is within earshot, you're all terrible people, and you should stop. But there's something about them. I don't know. It's just that
Yeah. You were probably you would have been one of the guys that I would have made fun of in high school, because like to me I was like a musical elitist. I listened to bands like Dream Theater, and
I love Dream Theater.
Yeah.
so guys that listen to punk, I was like, whatever, that shit sucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I wasn't like a gutter punk.
Sure.
Like I liked new wave stuff that came out, like Talking Heads, Blondie, like those kind of bands that came out that sort of primed punk.
Right.
I really wasn't that into Sex Pistols.
I thought Talking Heads was a little more prog.
They're all sort of out of that same scene. They're all sort of the CBGB new wave punk movement. Like they all sort of splinter off, and then other bands sort of latch onto their sound as they start to build popularity, and then those become their own subgenres as well.
Sure.
The punk scene in general sort of has its own. It used to be like when you thought punk, you thought fucking Gutter Kids, Sex Pistols, kids that didn't know how to play their instruments, and they just went up there and just all angst, the Cramps and all those kinds of bands where it was just sort of pure energy. And then you look at the sort of evolution, and as more bands, like somebody decides that they want to know how to play the guitar, and then you get bands that are a little more mature sounding out of it. Like they still have that energy, but their song structure is a lot better. And then that, somebody goes, what we could add a piano and like the synth sound, because nobody else was doing the synth sound in that dirty rock realm.
Yeah,
it was like
it was
the Who,
like disco and stuff.
Yeah, there was disco, and then like the Who was like, oh, let's put some syncopated synth rhythms.
Sure.
But it was still really clean sounding by that time. Like the Who sort of became more corporatized sounding band. Still awesome, but like
I know exactly.
They
what you mean.
were
They were
very well produced.
They were a lot cleaner in there later in terms of sound quality.
Which is kind of ironic that that's looked at as being more corporatized, because they have like a song that's like down with corporation.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the difference between Pearl Jam and Nirvana in a way that like Pearl Jam was always kind of considered the corporate grunge.
Right.
Yeah. They had a much cleaner sound, which is kind of like contrary to what grunge stands for.
Sure.
Yeah, it was they had a better producer.
Right, exactly.
Or a more commercial, not a better producer, a more commercial producer.
Right.
That didn't leave a lot of the rough edges that a lot of other bands were having at the time. But it's similar things, like, and then eventually you get down the road in punk, and then you have like you have bands like Bad Religion, who are super cerebral, and their lyrics are way over. They're like college level words in all of their lyrics that go way over everybody's heads, and they're talking about not just social issues, but like what those impact mean, like what the impact of the social issues mean, and like speaking philosophy to you through a punk song. And their structures, as opposed to just being angry, which is a lot of earlier punk, is just like fuck everything, suck a dick.
They're taking the more intelligent approach.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Evan is a college professor, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Brandon's Bad Religion is one of his favorite bands, and it's funny because they're like the only punk he listens to.
Yeah. I mean, and some people say, well, that's not punk. Well, no, fuck, it is. Like the sort of attitude behind it is sort of what makes it punk. Now they're kind of old, but like NoFX. The funniest thing on my favorite NoFX album, that They Suck Live, is, or I heard They Suck Live, is there's a point in it where somebody in the audience spits on El Jefe or one of the like the guitars, something like that, and he screams back at him like, "Hey, dude, what the fuck? Why'd you spit on me?" And the guy shouts back at him, "It's punk." And he's like, "Dude, I'm not that punk." And like NoFX is one of like in the 90s at least, one of the like preeminent punk bands that you would look to say punk. And so like even then, like what that guy in the crowd was really looking for was more of a Guttermouth punk, where the lead singer of Guttermouth would spit on the crowd. He would pick his nose and flick his boogers at the crowd. He would whip his dick out and masturbate in live shows, and like vomit on stage and like
Jesus. That's like sounds like like the Doors back in the day. Jim Morrison would piss on the crowd and stuff like that.
Gross.
Yeah. It's that same sort of idea of performance art in a way where it's like I'm my most vulnerable up on stage. Sharing that vulnerability with me. I want you to be just as uncomfortable as me. Because then you'll feel what I'm feeling when I'm yelling at you my lyrics. Or
exactly like when the Red Hot Chili Peppers just have like a sock on their dicks. It's like the exact same thing.
Well, they're a little wacky. Yeah,
a little wacky is a nice way to put it.
Ribbadum dimba 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 dimba. Yeah, I don't really like Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. I should because I'm a bassist, and Flea is a crazy good bassist.
Well, their songs are fun to play on bass in Rock Band.
Yes, they are. That's part of the reason why I love Rush so much is because Geddy Lee is a phenomenal bassist.
He's so good.
Iron Maiden, though, Steve Harris, you should check out his triplets. They're really good.
Yeah, he has a thing for triplets. But anyway, I hate to cut this riveting conversation a little short, but we are running a little long on time here, so I want to do the thing we do before we end every podcast. We play this game called Nerdagories. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's called Geek categories.
Geek List. Anyway, what we do is we ask every guest, we ask them a question that may or may not be about video games. And then after they answer that, they have to come up with a question of their own for the next guest. So,
I see.
Brandon, our previous guest, asked, is there a TV show that went on too long and you feel like you wish they would have been canceled? Brandon, what was your question?
No, it was one way or the other. Do you have a show that got canceled early that you wish kept going, or a show that went way too long, jumped the shark, and it made you really mad that it got shitty?
Either or, huh?
Yeah, you could choose one. So one that stands out to you. If there was a show that you just fucking loved, and it beat the dead horse just so much that it was embarrassing to think that you ever liked it in the first place.
Glee?
Glee. Okay.
That was after the first episode, I'm assuming you mean?
No, you know what? Glee.
I've never seen Glee, so I'm just joking.
And tell us why Glee.
Okay, Glee. The first like 2 seasons, I really enjoyed. One, like I really like Disney, so I'm really into musicals.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I did musical theater. I was in the choir in high school, so there was a lot of things that about that show and the sort of ragtag sort of group of. It's a different kind of geek that does band or choir. You know, like
sure,
it's not the same sort of like when you're really when you're really hell bent on like a scale in music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a whole nother level because it somehow makes you feel like you're smarter, you know, for having learned music or
sure.
whatever. So you not only are looked on as nerdy or geeky, but you also have this like elitist attitude that comes along with it a little bit. Sure. And you don't realize how much of a douche you look like. But there is something that was endearing about the show Glee in particular that sort of spoke to my time in high school that I recognized. You know, the main character, the one that died from the heroin overdose, was a football player that got convinced to join the Glee Club, and that was pretty much it was exactly my high school scenario. And then he falls in love with like one of the best singers in the Glee Club. My wife was also in choir, and then I eventually married her. Like, you know, we met in choir, and so there was a lot about that show that really connected to me. And then they got wacky. They started like the first 2 seasons. They did it really well to sort of seam the singing and the story together to where it was like performance based and like, you know, they're going to practice for this, and then that's how they're going to break out in a song. And then by like mid-second season into the 3rd season, they started just like running into the hallways and singing, and like then it became like it shifted a little bit, and it became really corny. And then they started doing like specialized episodes where they're like, we're only going to do Madonna songs, or like we're only going to do Britney Spears songs.
Yeah.
And so like the stories would suffer, the writing would suffer because they had to like figure out a way to continue their sort of general story arc and then fit in an entire episode of just one artist's stuff, you know, as opposed to like before where they were trying to cherry pick songs that sort of really referenced the tone or the story and carried it along.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think I know exactly what you mean.
You know,
I feel a little awkward waxing very poetic about Glee, but
Yeah.
But the way you described it, initially, like, totally makes sense to me in terms of why you would have connected with that. Like, if there was a show called like Failure that was about a kid that just grew up playing video games all day and then eventually dropped out of college, I probably would have really connected with that.
Right.
But
called Failure, though.
Exactly.
I'm exaggerating.
That hit television show, Failure.
But yeah, so my experience with Glee was
undeclared.
I'd seen some clips, and they must have been from the later seasons, like where you're talking about, where it seemed like it didn't really make sense why they were singing. It wasn't like a musical. When I heard about the show, I expected a musical, and I like musicals. You know what I mean? Because of Disney and because of my love of
lots
music
of people. Lots of people don't like musicals.
Yeah, lots of people don't like musicals.
Yeah,
really.
Anyway. I sort of keep it in like a little bit of a shame drawer. That I like musicals, but
there was this one particular instance that really turned me off of Glee, and it was, I can't recall the song, but the guy who wrote the music for the game Portal and Portal 2,
Jonathan Coulton,
the guy,
I was aware of that
he
too.
wrote music for one of my favorite games ever and the sequel to it, and I can't remember what the song was, but there was
it was the Sir Mix-a-Lot song,
right? I Like Big Butts, right? Or was
what's the name of that song? The song has a different title. It's not called I Like Big Butts, but anyway, he has a cover, an acoustic cover.
He did his own rendition of that song, and then on Glee, they just did his rendition, including like he had like completely out of context line that he had added in that make no sense for anyone other than him to sing it. And they left those in Glee.
It was something, because his name's Jonathan Coulton, so he had a line where it was like something Johnny C.
Yeah,
referencing
exactly.
himself.
Referencing
and they
himself.
just put that, they had the character in Glee say that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was such a blatant ripoff.
Yeah, but they didn't credit him at all.
No, they didn't ask him, they didn't credit him. He actually had he contacted them in kind of a legal way and was like, hey guys, what's up? And they were like, their response was like, well, Glee's a huge show, so the fact that we used one of your songs is actually pretty huge for you, right?
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah. You should be thanking us, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ugh. And that also, I remember that controversy.
Yeah, so
because I'm a fan of this guy, and so
exactly.
I follow him on Twitter and whatnot, so yeah, I was really upset when that happened.
Yeah. But anyway, it's your turn to come up with a question for our next guest, who is unknown, so,
Yeah, it could be anything, and
it could be anything.
It might be a curveball for him.
The first thing that sort of popped into my mind was, and I'll come up with something else if this is terrible, but like if you could have been the creator of any video game character, who would it be, and how would your impact have made it different?
That's a good question.
Okay, so kind of like, how would you create a character that already exists? You're talking about how would you have made this character
different? Let's say you already had the game. Like, oh, we've got a game where you're a plumber jumping on.
Yeah, I'd give Mega Man a 3-foot dick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so that it isn't so much like I pick Mario because he's the highest grossing and I would be a millionaire. He's the most recognizable video game character, as opposed to just going with that kind of a response.
Sure.
Pick a video game character that, if you could have created him, would be like, that would be the quintessential video game character you would have created. But because you're creating it as opposed to somebody else, how would you have altered that character? Instead of having blasters, Mega Man shoots bow and arrow or something like that.
I don't like it.
I think Mega Man would.
Just kidding.
I think Mega Man would be good with a bow and arrow. Yeah. No, I'm being sarcastic. Okay. I mean, I think I can already come up with a few. How about you? Answer your own question.
Oh, me? Wow.
So like the NASCAR.
Well, see, I spent so much time in games where I did create my own character.
Sure.
All of those Madden games, you create your own character. The MLB games, you create your person. I mean, like, I even had the wrestling WWF games where you could create yourself as a wrestler.
I think the wrestling games were the only sports games that I ever got into.
Really?
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we not talk about wrestling games?
I almost did, and then we went off track.
We stayed on Madden and racing games a little too long, but I did play the WWE games as well.
So if you created Peyton Manning, what would you have done differently?
I would have made his forehead smaller.
I was gonna say I wouldn't have changed a thing, baby.
I'd give him a stronger neck. Yeah.
Hold his giant ass head.
Yeah, exactly. No, if I were to have created my, I have to answer.
we
I have to
have
answer
to-
my own question.
I think it's fun.
Well,
don't
historically, our guests have, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
My
Especially
own
because it
question.
sounds like there might not be a character that is like, like you could say Mario from Mario Land, but I'm thinking more of like a character from a game that you've played that was made for the game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of video game characters that are interesting to me.
Sure.
Um.
Lara Croft.
Oh man, I had a whole chunk prepared on Lara Croft, dude. Shit. It was gonna lead me into the Grand Theft Auto games, and like that was sort of the end of my video gaming time.
Oh, we can't. Yeah, it's too bad.
If I could change the Grand Theft Auto 3 main character, I'd make him actually be a character with a personality.
Yeah, I was gonna say give him a personality.
Yeah, Lara Croft. I would have her wear a bikini. No.
If you were Dean, you'd say she should be black.
Or Asian. Yeah.
Or better yet, Blasian.
Blasian. Yeah. Like Tiger Woods.
That's right, Tiger Woods.
Tiger
Just-
Woods
just
should be
make
Lara
her
Croft.
Tiger Woods.
That's your answer. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I would make yes. I would
Lara
make
Croft, Tiger
Woods. And he would go around with a driver and just bashing people's heads in.
Dude, and tigers and whatever else.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would be as effective on the tiger, and it would probably slow him down in all the water, but you know.
No, he's used to the water traps.
The water traps.
Isn't that what they're called in
As soon as you get
Yes,
as
the
soon
water
as you
traps.
get in the water with Tiger Woods Tomb Raider, it puts you on the next closest shore and gives you a mulligan.
Oh man, that's a good
Stroke
crossover.
penalty.
Who do we have to call to pitch this?
Yeah,
I don't know who did
Tiger Woods, Tomb Raider.
Tiger Woods Tomb Raider. Yeah.
All right. Well,
That'd be
okay.
awesome.
So
No, it would be Tiger Woods Pro Tomb Raider.
PGA.
Yeah.
PGA
Right?
Tomb
By
Raider.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Hey, that was,
the game.
that was really good. So why don't you go ahead and plug all your cool stuff?
Let's see. Your listeners probably won't be interested in any of my plugs, so I'll plug my friends on the podcast stuff.
You can plug your stuff too. It's okay.
I mean, if you wanna hear my band, we're finishing up some recordings right now. I was hoping that I could get a good enough version of something that we're in the middle of recording, so that I could have you guys play it, so that you could retract your statements.
Well, it was Tim's statement. I actually have not listened to your
I
music.
never go back on my word.
I know.
I actually have not listened to your music, so I mean, just knowing from, I think that your radio voice is really good, so I'll take Tim's word for it that your singing voice is also really good.
But he won't actually listen to it.
No, never. No, I kind of want to. Maybe I'll wait for the good stuff.
Yeah, wait till we put out some of this newer stuff. But if you're interested in following along on Twitter, it's at BDR Rocks, BDR Rocks, not BDI, it's BDR.
Which stands for?
Brought Down Running is the name of the band. You can also go to broughtdownrunning.com. I'm about to do a huge facelift on the website pretty soon here. So, if you're interested in that, you can also follow me on Twitter if you thought I was interesting, at Cory D. Cooke. But for the most part, listen to the Shy Kids podcast. It's one of my babies right now.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous amount of fun. Podcasting is something that Doc and I tried to do back in 2004.
Whoa.
Wow.
When did
Good old 10 years ago.
We lived together for a while, and during that time we tried to start this thing called a podcast, and he was like, oh, it's totally cool, you can call this voicemail and just record a voicemail and then publish that to the internet. What? And he's
That's
like,
the most
or
the most janky old school description that I've ever heard.
well, no, because there was actually a phone number on
Sure.
a Blogspot or something like that. You could call and then record an audio clip. But there was also you could also do a record to your computer and post an audio clip. Or
Well,
whatever.
yeah, I know Windows, even back in the day, has always had a Windows Recorder app or a program that you could just use with your crappy desk mic. Record things, but I'm sure back then when internet was a lot slower, it was probably hard to upload big long wave files of you talking.
Yeah, they would have to be compressed. Oh, there wasn't even MP3 compression back then. Yeah,
There might have been,
by that time, yeah, but by
Put it on Napster.
It wouldn't have been easily accessible though,
Sure.
like having a program that does it.
sure.
right.
But anyway, you and Doc.
We tried. We actually, our first sort of go at it was we recorded a teaser from a Rush concert.
Oh.
that he had come with me to, and recorded like we're this is Doc and Cory, and we're gonna start a show, and we're at Rush right now, so we can't really do it right now, but look for us in the future, like with something stupid,
Sure. Well, that'll really grip them because we're at the Rush concert, and they'll be
I
all
know,
jelly.
right? Yeah, look at how cool we are.
Those Rush fans out there.
But I think he ended up not wanting to do it anymore because I was putting on too much of a radio voice.
Oh,
I'm a radio guy, you know.
Sure.
And it annoyed the shit out of him, and I think that's why that sort of fizzled out.
That's really funny.
Yeah, that was back in the day when we wrote like we thought we were going to write spec scripts for TV shows and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. No, similarly, I had a friend. We made crappy movies. We made a lot of movies in high school. That was kind of our thing.
Yeah, very very similar between us two. Yeah, and then eventually, years and years later, I asked him again to start a podcast, and had this guy that I worked with, Dean, and that has been the best pairing ever.
Yeah,
I'm like a $1 million matchmaker with those two. They're so funny.
Did you happen to watch our game chums that we did with them for the game Broforce?
Yes,
those are so good.
Those Broforce videos, because the game itself, I had no fun playing at all.
Yeah, it was an awful game.
So after we recorded those, I had a very negative feeling about the whole thing. Because I guess not enjoying the game just made me think all the videos were going to be bad. And then when I watched them, it was a treat. I mean, it was like it never happened, and I got to this never happened. It was like it never happened, and I got to experience it over again as someone in the audience. And yeah, those were fun. Those guys are hilarious, and
they are fantastic. I am the low spot on that show for sure.
I wouldn't say so. You guys, it's not really worth, I guess if you're looking at it as a comedy podcast and you're thinking who's funnier than who or whatever, then that's one thing. But you guys all have your own different perspectives and personalities, and it really there's no point in making it a contest because the three of you are required to make it work in the first place.
Right. No, it's very dependent on our chemistry.
Yeah.
But sometimes I sit there and think, God damn, Doc can tell a story. And then Dean is such a comedy ninja. He will just shoot in.
I've known him for a long time, so
Oh man, that guy, that was part of the reason why I was like, I got to get him on a podcast. That was part of the spark. I was like, I got to get him on microphone so that people can hear the crazy funny ass shit that he is saying under his breath to the group of people that he's around. Nobody else can hear him, but I'm standing next to him and I can hear everything, and he's cracking me the fuck up.
Yeah,
he needs to be in a podcast.
Thought. Yeah, growing up with him, going to high school with him, and afterwards, we really only became good friends right after high school and onward. And yeah, my whole experience. Sometimes he would say things that were so fucking clever that I would think this dude needs to be actually doing something.
Yeah, I'll move on to actual websites.
Yeah, for the Shy Kids, but so it's a comedy podcast.
Yeah, a Shy Kids podcast is a comedy podcast. We talk about awkward, nerdy things as well. It's shykids.com, theshykids.com. This is why I toss it off to Doc and Dean. Theshykids.com for all your Shy Kids needs. You can also... you can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Shy Kids as well. Our Twitter is @ShyKidsPodcast. Yes. Otherwise, you can search for us on Stitcher and iTunes and wherever you need it to. Also on Saturday afternoons, really, on morelikeradio.com.
Morelikeradio.com.
Yeah, you can hear the show before it becomes a podcast. It airs there first at 11.
It's a live show.
Yeah, you can. Well, we're usually in the chat room that's associated with the live feed. So it's kind of like a live show. We sort of interact about what we talked about. But yeah, you go to morelikeradio.com and listen to us. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's a lot of fun. Podcast is a lot of fun. Also, go to docwheatley.com for all of his Let's Play videos, and go to find Fruitsy Collins on Society 6 and buy all of his 8-bit artwork. Dean's 8-bit art is fantastic.
Yeah, he does 8-bit art. If you've listened to the second episode of this show, you would have heard Dean and got his plugs there. But yeah, he makes good stuff.
I'm sure they already touched on their plugs in their own episodes, but their work, I'm a big fan of theirs.
Sure. As are we.
As anybody else. So yeah, go support them too.
Thanks for everyone for listening to our podcast. What is it, the fourth
Interview
episode
show.
that we've done?
Yes, this would be episode 4. And thank you so much, Cory, for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, of course.
I'm glad I didn't shit the bed about video games.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, I mean, I've been playing video games for 20 years, so it's hard not to be able to pick a game genre or period that I was really engrossed in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so which means that since you have less in the way of that experience, we can still find a part of our experience that can still kind of jam with that.
Exactly.
No, it was fantastic. I had a great time having a conversation. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. All right.
So, check out our website, SharkTank.com, the Shark of the Sea, in case you haven't.
The sharks live in the sea.
Shark with the sea. The sharks are from the sea. And we've got a YouTube channel, Shark Tank, on YouTube. Shark with the Sea.
If you're listening to this, then you are aware of our YouTube channel.
We have lots of cool stuff, so you should like and subscribe and tell us things.
Comment and let us know how much we suck and how much you dislike our stuff.
Just let us know exactly what you want us to do, and we'll just do it.
Yeah, just tell us.
Stop having non-video game players on.
What's this music bullshit? I don't even know what music is.
All right,
Rush, fuck Rush.
Thanks, Cory. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're not supposed to say on 3 and then start at 3. You're supposed to say on 3 then start at 1 or on go. And
Nobody gives a shit.
I don't give a shit.
I give a shit.
You got plenty of warning.
Look, there are... No, because when you said on 3, I immediately hit record. That's not actually true. That's a joke. Anyway.